Now, this is a guy that I've always wanted to have on the program, so buckle in. Good Friday evening to you. My State of Mind. I am Dan Yorke. Thanks for watching. It's 7:30, 11:30 on IRI TV and on Fox Providence at midnight, as you're becoming accustomed if you've been watching the show on Fridays. We skip the rundown for the day and the issues of the day. In this particular case, we recorded the program 2 days ago on Wednesday. With the one and only Bill Reynolds from the Providence Journal, and of course, a world-renowned author in the sports world. Bill and I have become at least good acquaintances on in the sports arena out there, and he's a commentator on everything in life in Providence with his incredibly popular Saturday column. His work in the literary world, though, is phenomenal, and he's being honored along with Chris Herren for the combination project they did with the last book, which I read on an airplane and could not put down. In fact, I almost missed my connecting flight when I was reading the story, and I kid you not, it was unbelievable. And here's a little background on Chris, and then we'll talk to Bill about the project, writing all about his struggle and his success.
On the court, Chris Herren was a star. Off the court, he was an addict.
I was hopeless at one time. You know, I had lost the faith that I could turn it around.
But in 2008, the former Celtics player got sober, and now the Fall River native has devoted his life to helping others on the road to recovery.
We've seen an increase in desperation, families looking for options to treat their loved ones. So that's what the Herren Project's about. You know, it's about assisting people who are in the struggle.
It's a struggle that's gotten worse in our area.
With the emergence of prescription painkillers, I knew there would be a rapid rise in heroin. You know, kids think that they'll always stay on that pill, just like I did. And kids switch over. That's
why Chris Herren is calling for more substance abuse education.
We have to get to our kids early. You know, we've done a great job with cancer, with smoking, but the funding was there. We need to find that funding to keep kids off of drugs.
We also asked Herren to talk about Narcan, a drug that's used to reverse the effects of an overdose.
It brought me back to life, so I have to agree with it. I mean, it's given me a second chance. Do I think that's the solution? Absolutely not. I think that's the Band-Aid. I think we need to educate our kids and treat addicts. It's that simple.
I'm sure when you look at that video and look at what that guy has become, it must give you pause.
Oh, it's a miracle.
It's a miracle.
It's an absolute miracle. One of the last nights, he came to my house in South Kingston, and I had been dealing with him for several years by now as an addict. But addicts can fool you. You get used to it. You forget what they were like before they were screwed up. And he sat on the couch and he said, Reynolds, he said, how do I get back to Portsmouth? And I'm in South Kingston. I said, Chris, you've been here before. You go out that road, you go down Route 1, you take the first exit and come back and go north to the Newport Bridge. He goes, oh, yeah. So I walk him out. He throws up on the driveway. He gets in the car. He calls me half hour later. He's in Connecticut. And I'm like, that's the reality of it. Well, that was the, right after that he crashed. But the problem with it, when you're dealing with someone who you love or a family member or something like that, the descent is gradual, and you kind of get used to it. You kind of forget what they were like before they were so bad. And so it's a horrible thing.
Well, the way you chronicled the story in Basketball Junkie, a memoir, was gut-wrenching. I took a connecting flight from Providence to Philly to get to Scotland. I told you this a couple of years ago, and I almost forgot to get out of the plane. I was so immersed in the incredible naked play-by-play that you were able to offer in that book. Before we get to the more of the story, let me just tell you what's happened here. Come on back to this camera, will you, Jess? She loves that camera, folks. She loves that camera. You were honored, and this is airing Friday night, so last night the East Bay Center, which has a website, eastbaycenter.org, we'll put that up. They do some incredible work. They offer psychiatric and counseling services to more than 3,000 people each year with mental illness and substance abuse disorders, and they have honored Bill and Chris because of their mutual project. You've got to be honored by the honor, yes?
Yeah, of course, but I'm the caddy in all this. It was Chris's story. I mean, Chris lived it. I witnessed too much of it, but he lived it. The book, I've done a lot of books. That was the easiest book I ever wrote in my life because the story was so compelling, and he had the courage to tell it. And I said to him, Chris, if you're going to do this, you got to tell the truth. And he looked at me the first time. He said, like all of it? I said, yeah, all of it. You got to tell all the truth. And he did. And he did it from minute one. And so for me, all I had to do was write it down. I mean, anybody could have done that.
Hard process?
No, that process was easy because he was okay then. The tough process is going through with somebody who is not okay. For instance, I'll tell you a quick story, a quick aside. For several years, he called me up. He said, Reynolds, you got to give me a ride from, he was living in Portsmouth and I'm in South Kings. You got to give me a ride to the hospital in Fall River. I had to do a drug test. So I would drive over the bridge and pick him up in Portsmouth, and we drive to Fall River. And I was going to Providence anyway, so it's not totally awful, but it's out of my way. And I probably did this. I give him a little bit of money, and I drop him off. And I probably did 30 times, 20 times, 30 times, whatever. So at one point, I'm hearing him speak years later, and he said, well, I haven't been drug tested in like X amount of years. I said, Chris, how about all the times I picked you up? He says, no. He says, I had to get to the drugs. I'd go in the front door of the hospital and walk out the back. And that was the reality of the whole thing.
Were you angry when you heard that?
No, because because I knew, I got to know in what pain he was in. No, I wasn't angry. I am fortunate, I think, to have been able to be a part of it, to be a part of keeping him alive a little bit. He'd come down to the Journal sometimes, and this is when he was bad. He'd have 2 little kids in the back seat, and the car's, falling apart. And I walk around the building, he's got tears in his eyes, and my kids are in the dark, and there's no TV, and it's cold, and there's no heat. What do I do? Well, what do you say? I mean, what do you say to someone you care about? What do you do? So you give them a few dollars, and you pray for them, basically. And then
But you go from, and we got to get Chris here. For some reason, he's got some authorization issues to participate in this conversation. I can't wait to get him on. I don't know what's going on. He's got an agent issue or whatever. But you go from a guy who's writing about him as a sports star to a guy who befriends him.
So I get to know him. I did a book on his high school team.
Right.
And
which was called
Fall River Dreams.
Which people across the country still think is one of the all-time best.
Because of Chris's story, basically, that book is still alive. That book is in its 18th printing last time I checked. Well, books don't get, most books, successful books don't get to the 3rd printing or the 2nd printing.
Right.
So that book keeps going because of Chris Herren, not because of me. And I'm very aware of that. So we had a history. We had a history for 20 years. So what do you do to somebody who who you care about? You say, gee, Chris, like you're a mess. I can't deal with you anymore. No, you don't. You try and do what you can, and you never can do enough. And in retrospect, who knows if you do the right thing?
It's interesting. Let's pause here. When we come back, let's go to this camera so we can do this the right way. She loves that camera. When we come back, we will talk about the sports journalistic license that one can take when following people that you have empathy for. Stay with us. There's Chris Herren when he was in his heyday, and there was some heydays. Chris Herren and Bill Reynolds were honored last night by the East Bay Center, a community-based mental health and substance abuse program where thousands are helped. And eastbay.org is their website if you want to see and seek, if you need to seek help for you or for somebody else. The Basketball Junkie project, a book called Basketball Junkie, is, 4 years old now?
Something like that.
Yeah. So Fall River Dreams is in its 18th run.
Yeah, it's like 20 years old.
And Fall River Junkie. I'd love to get Chris here and have a conversation with him, and so we'll try to schedule that. Look, I could talk to you all day. Every week you are producing thoughtful columns about the sports world and reaching in and grabbing people's hearts, stories. You love the little guy. You love the upset winner. You love the comeback story. You love all of that kind of thing. We'll talk about that in a second, but tell me what it's like in the sports journalistic world to have to be the objective analyst slash reporter slash that, and then develop relationships with people the way you have, and then in this particular case with Herren, being an advocate and perhaps half a savior with the book.
Well, I've been a little, because I'm a columnist, I'm a little bit different.
A little bit more leeway.
Much more, much more. And if you're writing about a game and you're trying to be objective, it's a much different type of thing. I mean, I have the leeway to try and get into somebody and to try and have an opinion on them and try to make them say things that other people in the business aren't trying to make them say, because that's really not their job. And I think that's the challenge of it. That's the fun of it. It's the challenge of it.
You love the relationship side of the sports
Totally,
world.
totally.
You're all about relationships.
Yeah, I've seen a zillion games in my life. There's nothing that can happen in a game, any game in the world that I haven't seen. So games are games. I love games, but that's not what keeps me in this. It's about people, and it's about it's like about real life. And sports for me is just a vehicle to get to people, basically.
You have to be at a post-game press conference, and I'm the URI PA announcer, right? And I get around anyway, right? So I'll be watching a press conference go on and on and on, and then it's over, and then the real work starts when, they say, now you got to go talk to Reynolds, and Reynolds takes him off in a corner somewhere, and then he starts his work, and the coach or the athlete looks forward to talking to Reynolds because they know they're going to have a dialogue and a conversation, and it's a really special place that you found in that world.
Well, I'll tell you how I found it, and I didn't find it by myself, basically. Before I ever started to write a word, there's a great story, great column by Jimmy Breslin 50 years ago. Well, Linda Kennedy died, 63, whatever that was, how many years that was. He's a young reporter. He's sent by the New York Daily News, whatever, to cover the Kennedy funeral. Now, what do you do? The whole world's media is there. And his idea was, he gets up in the morning, he goes out, takes a cab out to the graveyard, the cemetery, Arlington Cemetery, and he interviews the gravedigger. He's the only person talking to the gravedigger at 7 in the morning. Everyone else is waiting for the procession. And his great line to me, I once met him once, and his great line to me was always go to the gravedigger. And that's what stayed in the back of my mind forever. If the crowd's over here, go over there. If the crowd's over there, go over here. And that's what appeals to me about the whole thing.
You wrote a story last week about this young man from Hope High School. You chronicled for your book the Hope High School team. You find out that he gets shot in his own house. Your heart must have broken over that.
Nicest kid in the world.
Yet you write the story about his comeback. I'm sure that he totally appreciated that. He's still got some demons, I'm sure, from that experience.
But that Hope book is exactly the same thing. It's going to the gravedigger, because this is an inner city high school team that basically nobody goes to the games. Basically, nobody cares a whole lot about, and these are kids that nobody cares a whole lot about. And so that, from a writing standpoint, appeals to me. Like, who are they? What's their lives like? What's it like to be on an inner city team? What's it like to play basketball and your parents never come? What's it like to come back on a bus ride and it's 8 degrees and they drop you off in the parking lot and there's no car ever? No one has a car and no parents ever pick them up. I mean, so that book, I love doing that book. That's my little way of writing something that very few people see.
But one of the things I think is consistent with your work, column to column to column. The Saturday column aside, we'll talk about that in the next segment. But you're looking for the glass half full side of everybody's life. I can't remember the last time you wrote about somebody in sport, whether it be high school, collegiate, pro, a retro on somebody that has passed or is struggling, a family that you always find a way to create an essay that leaves an impression of good, of success, of hope. I think that's part of you. Is that do you go in saying there's got to be a better story to tell here?
That's a good question. I don't have an answer for that. I go, it sounds trite, but it's true. I go with my instinct. And my instinct, for the most part, has served me well in my career. It doesn't always serve me well.
But you must...
Doesn't serve me well in my life all the time, but in my career, it's basically served me well.
You like people.
Yes, I do like people.
You like people. You're a people guy.
And I know that everyone has a story, good, bad, indifferent. Everyone's got a story. And basically, if you sit anyone down and you listen to them, they'll tell you their story. And the problem with me covering professional sports is everyone knows Tom Brady's story. You can't get him to tell it anyway, because you've been in those situations. It's a media scrum, and it's just a different thing. So again, it's going to the gravedigger. Get away from the president being buried and go to the guy who dug the grave. And so that's what I'm always looking to try and do. It doesn't always work.
Well, for the reader, it works nearly every time. I don't know. I mean, we've all laid eggs, but I doubt you've laid a lot of eggs. And I think one of the nice things about your work is that people know they're going to go on a little bit of a ride here through somebody who, when they're written about, probably thinks, when you get a call from Bill Reynolds, hey, listen, you want to meet for coffee somewhere? I've had some thoughts. I want to meet with you and talk to you about something. That must ring a bell in any sports-related person's mind that, oh man, Reynolds is going to, I'm going to get a Reynolds piece.
Yeah, but I also have the luxury to do that, and I don't minimize that. I mean, I have a job that gives me, in the business, a lot of freedom.
But you know what I'm saying? People, when you call and say, listen, I'd like to write a piece on you, 9 times out of 10, that's got to be a thrill for that subject.
I don't know.
For that person.
I don't know. No, but I mean, that...
Okay, well, good. You know, keep your humility, but I will tell you it is a thrill.
Okay.
I've talked to too many people who have had stories written by you who will say, that was a thrill.
But a lot of people that I write about are kids who don't know me really. They don't know who I am. They're not gonna, they don't read anything. If you sit down and let someone tell their story, 9 times out of 10, they'll give you something great. I really believe that. And it doesn't have to be a great athlete. It can be a kid in a hope book, a book on hope who doesn't play a whole lot. But I guarantee you he has a story to tell if you sit around and listen to it.
And as much as I think you are an optimist and someone who lifts people up, you don't hesitate to throw a punch, and that's something we'll see on the Saturday column. And when we come back, I want to point to a full column that Bill wrote this past week about the PawSox. That's a must-read. Stay with us. I will tell you, well, there's the downtown 195 site. Well, there it is. That I guess is no longer the site for the new Providence Stadium. There are the drawings. Who knows? It could come back. But right now, it's kind of a dead deal, and it's been one misstep after another. And I was so happy to see this column the other day. It is not often. I might read an excerpt. I don't think it's been a long time since I read an entire column on my radio show. But Bill wrote this column about the process and lack of progress in this area. And I think you grabbed it. I think you understood that the PawSox coming in early and writing a Dear John letter to Pawtucket like that didn't put them in good stead, that their ask was too much, that the loss of Jim Skeffington unexpectedly certainly upended the whole thing. But what you really wrote about in this thing was the trust that people have lost for government. Yes?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I do, every time I'm in the car, I listen to talk radio. And I've done it for 40 years. I don't listen to music. I don't listen to like talk radio. And the minute that thing started to play out last spring, I don't remember a call in support of it. We have been so beaten down around here. We're like a wounded animal. We've been kicked and beaten up
38 studios.
By 38 studios, and by the perception that nobody sitting up there on Smith Hill, or at least not enough of them, are out for the people's interests. Whether it's true or that's the perception. True, false, whatever. And I think that, I don't think you even talk about the new stadium without that kind of hanging over everything.
No, if they don't go to hearings, I don't need to steal the show because I say it every night. Every night I say it here, and every day on the radio. If they don't go to full hearings, subpoena, prosecute if necessary, name the bad guys, summarize it, put it to bed. It will never be. The enema will never happen. This cloud could hang over this state forever. In any public-private partnership, whether it be a sports type investment or anything else, it hangs in the negative balance, and our leadership doesn't see it.
No. You're absolutely right.
But you were able to. I'm begging the Raimondo and Mattiello and Paiva Weed and everybody else administrations to read your column. Maybe hearing it from you. I mean, you didn't say, do hearings. What you did was you captured as you do with every other story that you write, you captured an essence of where people are and their relationship, in this particular case, to government.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole issue, isn't it? That's the whole issue. I went to a thing at Johnston, one of those dog and pony shows, like in the summer, and the Red Sox, Dr. Steinberg would come in, and from the beginning, he had no shot. From the beginning, he could have been given out free money. It wasn't going to matter. That's the climate.
Yeah. Well, you don't do a listening tour and not listen anymore either.
That's good. Right.
You know, that's
right.
That's just
right.
Not happening. I ask people to read that column. Go back on projo.com if you can. Speaking of columns, the Saturday column, when you hit all fields, is I think the thing that keeps the Saturday paper together. When does that all come together, by the way? Because it's about, what, 30 to 40 random thoughts on deadline?
Yeah, something like that. It gets harder all the time. People think it's easier, but it gets harder. I do it on Friday. What I do is...
You talking to a microphone all week or something with a random thought?
No, what I do is I read 6 newspapers a day, every day. And I just save things that I think are going to be, I throw them in a drawer, and on Friday I pick them out, and I can't remember what I, like why I took the thing out.
Well, it used to be the quote of the day is now quote number 1, number 2,
yeah,
number 3, number 4.
Good.
You're really on a roll with those, aren't you?
Good. People say things much better than I can say them. But it started out to be something different. I just wanted a column to be something different. This is 20 years ago, 25 years ago, whatever. And I stole the idea from, you ever hear of Jimmy Cannon?
Yeah.
Jimmy Cannon was the great sports writer, in New York when I was a kid. And I'd go to the barbershop, and the Post or the Daily News, whatever he was, they'd be lying around. I didn't know who Jimmy Cannon was. I picked this thing up, and he'd say things like little one-liners, like you're getting old when the cops look young or something. No, you're getting old when the cops look old. I mean, stuff like that.
Right.
It was all about, and it was different, and I liked it.
I'm going to tell you, it is, I don't have to tell you, but it's nice for people to tell you something that you, I'm sure, know but wouldn't say. It is a fabric of this community that, if it ever goes away, will be devastating. I'll never forget.
Oh,
I don't know. It'll go away soon.
It's going to go away.
Are we retiring soon?
No, but it's going to go away.
Listen, we know that. We know that.
It's going away.
But I was at the golf club one day, I don't know, last year or whatever, and you had put something about me in there. I didn't get from the parking lot to the men's room before a half a dozen guys said, "Hey, congratulations, you made Reynolds this morning." Not, "Hey, you were in the paper." Congratulations. And I didn't say, "Oh," and I said, "Oh, I haven't gone to the bathroom yet," because of course your column is over the urinal. And that's when I
it's probably a fitting place for it, right?
But no, it's there because it's a must read for the fellas.
Yeah.
It's incredible. But here's the question that everyone wants to know. Where's Bunkie come from, dude? What is that?
It's exactly, it serves the purpose of you ask me who it is.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it. It's anybody.
It's not
everybody.
It's not a question that ever has to be answered.
No.
Right, Bunkie?
There is no answer.
Great work with Chris Herren and great work in general. And can you come back a lot? Because I love you.
Thank you.
I really
Thank
do.
you.
And make sure that you check out the East Bay. And we have that, what was that last? The East Bay Center, eastbay.org. There you go, for their great work. All right, last word when we come back. Hey, listen, next week, the 38 Studios documents most likely will be released through some kind of web through the Superior Court. That's going to be a big conversation. We'll have a repeat program Monday because I'm off, okay? And we'll be all over 38 next week. We'll see you on the radio at noon on WPRO until 3 every day. I'm back here Monday night. Thanks so much for watching. Read Reynolds' column. Don't forget to read that.